So Deb, thanks for inviting me to come visit with you at your church.
Absolutely, thank you.
You've done a great job of creating a safe church policy. You've trained staff and volunteers, adult education. You've invested so much time and effort into this really important work of making the church safe.
Yeah, we have, and I'm so thankful for the work that my Safe Church team has done and this congregation and the staff to really put together a good policy. The work has just begun now that the policy has been approved. It's a work in progress, but I'm very glad that we went to this step to do this.
As I go around and visit with church leaders who are completing this process, who are also getting ready to run curriculums for the kids on sexual abuse prevention, I do find there's some apprehension about what to do if a child actually discloses. Do you have any apprehension here among your staff?
I think any director would have concern that their staff is completely ready and trained and equipped with everything that they will need when they're confronted by a situation that a child brings them or that a youth brings them. And so I think there is a level of concern always that everyone is prepared and ready to go if a case does come our way.
And so often the cases here in churches, like in any other venue, involve a member of the child's family, and that makes it incredibly difficult.
It is, and especially when it's someone who's known and someone who the church family knows rather than someone from outside the church. It becomes much more difficult for the congregation to process, for the families to work with the staff, and it is more troublesome.
When I'm visiting pastors and leaders from churches who've completed this process, I'm kind of checking in with them to see if they have any particular fears and bringing with me some case studies so we can go over some stories, because I've done so much work with churches through the years. I have a lot of disclosure stories. And I don't know if it would be helpful for you or not, but we could go over one of these disclosure studies that I brought with me just as a way of maybe thinking through, particularly an incest case, how might you handle it?
Sure, that would be great.
Pastor Karen really responded well in a case about a year ago, and I can kind of tell you how she handled this, and maybe we can kind of talk through what your thoughts are on that. You might do some things differently. I know you've had experiences of your own with this, so you're one of those leaders that I have just complete confidence in, because you know what to do.
Right, thank you.
Well, with Pastor Karen, she had preached a sermon one morning, and this was after they had completed their Safe Church process, with some commentary on the commandment about honoring our father and mother, and honoring God as we do our earthly father and mother. So after the sermon, she's in her office, and this young girl, I'll call her Morgan, she's about 14, comes into the office and seems to be really troubled and agitated, but she just asked Pastor Karen if she could talk with her for a minute. So Karen says absolutely. She knows this girl well, been longtime church members, Dad's on the council, Morgan's in youth group. But she can see that Morgan just seems to be upset. And so she asked Morgan, well, what's going on? You know, is there a way I can help you? And you've probably had that experience here too. Kids don't want to come right out and talk about what's wrong, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So Karen asked her to sit down. Morgan just puts her head down, doesn't really want to talk. And finally, she says to Pastor Karen, you remember in your sermon when you talked about honoring our earthly father and mother? And Karen said, well, yeah, I think I remember saying something about that. And Morgan said, well, does that mean I have to do everything my dad tells me to do, even if I think it's wrong? Well, Karen's thinking, is it, what is going on here? And so she said to Morgan, I need to know a little bit more. Are you talking about something like he's telling you don't text during dinner and you want to be able to text? And Morgan says no. She said, I mean if he's asking me to do something that dads aren't supposed to ask their daughters to do. So if you were in that kind of situation, I'm guessing by then you'd have figured out there's something serious here?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, by that point, I think I would know that he's doing something that's very inappropriate with Morgan.
You can tell by
Absolutely.
her body language, the way
Absolutely.
she's approaching it.
Her demeanor, her responses are a red flag to say something is going on here, and I need to gently but firmly encourage her to share what's going on. And oftentimes, children and youth, especially youth, are afraid to say anything because they're afraid that it will come back on them or something will happen to a parent. Oftentimes, my guess would be that she would want to tell me, but then ask me to keep her secret.
And that is exactly what happened with Pastor Karen when she said, Morgan, I need to know what kind of things is your dad asking you to do? And I can see you're really upset and I want to help, but I need to know. And, Morgan just kind of looked down and said, well, asking me to touch him in places down there. Mm-hmm. And of course, Karen, like any of us, her stomach is dropping out through the bottom of her feet. She knows Morgan's dad, Pete, prominent member of the church. But she had to be clear. And she said, Morgan, do you mean he's asking you to do sexual things? And Morgan said, yeah. And that's the moment we all know that we need to respond in the right way. And what you talked about happening is exactly what happened, because the first words out of Morgan's mouth were, you can't tell anybody? And then the next words were, do you believe me?
And that's a huge concern, is whether I will keep their secret and will anybody find out, and then do I believe, because I would know her dad, I've worked with her dad, I've been on meetings with her dad, I know her parents. So it's an awkward situation for her to find herself in, but my first responsibility is to trust her and believe her, and to be her person to walk with her through this.
Exactly.
So I need to trust her, I need to reassure her that I believe her, but I can't keep her secret. That's the big thing. She's being harmed, and therefore we need to go to the next step, which is to contact Childline. Mm-hmm. And I know that she's probably not going to like that idea, but the fact still remains that somebody needs to stop this. And Childline is the first place to do that, and we need to call them.
That is exactly right. And a lot of kids have concerns too, as did Morgan. She's afraid her dad's going to be arrested, and she asked Pastor Karen, if you tell them on Childline, are they going to come and arrest my dad?
Right. And my task is not to be able to know what will happen next, but to reassure her that I will walk with her through this process. I don't know what will happen with her dad, but I need to reassure her that we're doing the right thing on her behalf, and that we need to do this, and really encourage her to actually make the call herself. However, some youth just are so uncomfortable with that, especially with this information. I can make the call, and they'll want to talk to her, but I'll be with her through this process, and I want to reassure her that that will be the case.
That is so, I feel you're so well prepared, because that is really what Pastor Karen did as well. As it turned out, when she asked Morgan to actually make the call and she'd be with her, at first Morgan said okay, reluctantly, mm-hmm. But then when Pastor Karen handed her the phone, Morgan just started to cry. And so Pastor Karen got on the phone and said, I have Morgan here with me, and she's asked me to tell you that her father is sexually abusing her. And so Morgan was with Karen while the call was made. And after Pastor Karen made the call to Childline, she also called local Child and Youth Protective Services to get a quicker response. And so they did give a response where they came out to the church, because in a case where a child is being abused by someone in the family, it is a danger to send her home.
Right. Or to call the mother in. The mother may or may not have knowledge about this. And if they do have knowledge, it would be very dangerous for Morgan to go home.
That's one of the places I see a lot of pastors or teachers or leaders make a big mistake, and they want to go and get mom, or they want to go and talk to dad and get his side of the story and then decide. And of course, that's not prioritizing the safety and the well-being of the child.
Right. I think that's natural instinct for those of us in the ministry, because we want to be caring to all parties. But our first priority is to Morgan, and that is to ensure her safety. We don't know what the scenario is at home, so we have to make sure that she's cared for first, and by making those phone calls and having them come directly to the church, that will ensure her safety.
Exactly, and it's a crisis for the family. There's no doubt about it, you know, and dad and mom may both need a lot of pastoral care and support. There'll be legal involvement. There's an investigation, and I think often people are always scared that if it's reported, a child will be immediately removed from the home. But in my experience, as long as there's one protective parent, children and youth will typically ask the alleged offender to leave during the period of the investigation.
Right. And so all kinds of things run through a child's mind. They don't know what will happen, but as long as they have someone who, like Pastor Karen, was well trained and ready to be able to take care of her and walk with her and do the right thing, I think that's very important. The rest of it, as far as counseling for the family and all the legal ramifications, you know, that's going to be important for Pastor Karen to walk through, especially with a parent that's at home.
That is absolutely true. And we are fortunate in Lancaster County that we do have a Children's Alliance clinic where they have forensic interviewers. And in this case, Morgan was sent to the clinic and interviewed by someone skilled in asking the right kind of questions without leading the child. The interview's taped, so the district attorney and detectives and children and youth can watch it, and the child doesn't have to go through multiple rounds of questioning. And as it turned out in this case, eventually Pete, her dad, was arrested. And when it came out, he was very angry with the pastor and the church for a while, threatened to sue them. So Pastor Karen said it was really hard on her, but she knew that she was doing the right thing in prioritizing Morgan.
And I think that is the significant piece. I think we all need to be prepared, and that's what the policy is for, in order to worry about all the things that come after this incident. But Children's Alliance is wonderful in taking care of the child and making those things that all those parties that are involved will need in order to take care and prosecute and what have you. The church should still be there for the parents in any way that they can. However, once the father is arrested, we have to respect the legal process in that. But there's still mom and Morgan and her siblings to take care of during this process as well. So we have to be sensitive to that, but we also have to recognize that the church is not going to be, you know, the father threatened to sue the church, and the church should not worry about those kinds of things. They are protected from that as well.
That's right. As long as you report in good faith, you are protected.
Exactly.
So it sounds to me like you're ready here to be able to handle whatever comes. And I would love to see a copy of your finished policy. Do you have a copy with you?
I do, and here it is.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look at this. Oh, Child protection policy. What is Church of the Brethren? I love the line you have down here: to honor the Lord, provide safety, protect fully, and reduce risk for all children, youth, vulnerable adults, and the staff that cares for them all. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.